I was 14 when a boy who I'd never met contacted me on Instagram. Let's just call him Jim. He messaged me saying that he thought I was cute and asked if he could have my number. I thought he was good looking, so I thought, why not? And that's how it started. I was so innocent and so unaware of the nightmare that lay ahead of me. We began to call each other every day and would speak for hours. We talk about random things, and I always thought that whatever he said was funny or cute. He kept talking about how much he really wanted to see me in person, and I think it was during these phone calls that I fell in love with him, even though he was 7 years older than me. 2 weeks later, Jim and I finally met for the first time. He picked me up in his car and took us to his place. He lived with his dad, but he was never home, so Jim had the entire place to himself. We hung out, watched a movie, and had a great time. He was a guy that basically did whatever he wanted. I noticed that he always had a lot of cash money on him, but I never had any idea about where he got it from, nor did I care. The only thing I wanted was to be with him. It didn't take long to realize that Jim was actually a very jealous type. He didn't want me wearing skirts or dresses to school. Instead, he only wanted me to wear trousers. I did everything he said because I wanted to make him happy, but it slowly got worse, and he became more intense and demanding. He would call me during my breaks at school, and if I didn't pick up the phone immediately, he would get mad at me. After school, I'd have to meet up with him straight away or else I'd get in trouble. And eventually, meeting up with my friends was no longer an option, as I'd always have to be with him. After a few weeks, he expected more than just kissing. I wasn't ready for any of that at all. One day, we were in his room, and he was trying to push me to do it. I said that I didn't want to and tried to push him off of me, but instead, he told me to stop whining. He said, "We've been together for a while now. I deserve it." I didn't say anything when I got home. I was too scared and ashamed. My parents were Christians, so boys wasn't a topic that we would discuss, especially not at the age of 14. I was very aware that what Jim had done to me was unacceptable, but he called me the next day and said how sorry he was and how bad he felt to see me so upset. I made the mistake of forgiving him because he sounded so genuine. There were qualities that I really loved about him, and I really believed it was a one-time mistake. You need to know that I had a hard time at home. I clashed with my parents a lot. I felt they favored my younger sister, that she was the center of their attention. Everything I did was wrong, and everything she did was amazing. I felt so isolated, and eventually searched for love and attention from Jim instead. Jim apologized. He said he was sorry, that he wasn't himself, but his one-time mistake started to happen over and over again. I know I didn't want him to control my life and my body, but I was too afraid to resist because I didn't have anyone else but him. I never saw my friends, and in the end, they didn't speak to me anymore. So every time he asked for it, I would tell myself to endure it. It would be over soon. One day, he started to become more violent. I started to become afraid of him. One day, Jim had 2 of his friends come over. At some point, he got really mad at me for no reason. He told me to entertain his friend before sending me to his bedroom. Shortly after, one of his friends entered the room and started touching me. I felt nervous and uncomfortable. What's happening to me? I thought. I tried to stop him, but then Jim came in. "You do what I tell you to do," he yelled. Then the other friend joined the room. My thoughts were all over the place. I was lost, I was scared, but mostly sad. I knew I was powerless against these 3 men. What the hell was I supposed to do against them? After this, he kept introducing me to random men. It would always happen the same way. I would meet Jim after school. He would drive me to his house, and then different men would show up at different times. Funny enough, the thought that Jim was using me for prostitution didn't even cross my mind at first. I never saw them giving him money or anything like that. At school, things were bad too. I was really quiet in class. I had loads of bruises and faked injuries, so I could skip sports class in school. The principal noticed something was off and would often ask me if everything was okay or if I wanted to chat. I came up with excuses for when they saw my bruises. I'd say things like, "I fought someone because they were rude about my mom." I seemed to get away with it for a while, but eventually, My parents also noticed that something was wrong with me no matter how hard I tried to hide the truth. Once I got home, I ran straight to my room, turned off all the lights, and hid under my blanket to make sure they didn't discover the bruises if they decided to walk in. I was hiding in my shell. This lasted a year, until one day during lunch break, I missed Jim's call because the teacher kept us in class a little longer. He was so furious that I didn't pick up the phone. He sent me loads of threatening texts saying that he knew where my younger sister was and that he would take her. I ran outside and burst into tears until one of my classmates saw and asked what happened. In despair, I showed her all of Jim's messages, that he forced me to meet with strangers, and slowly, I told her everything. So of course, she told her mom, who called my parents and the school. I hated her for telling everyone, but looking back, I am so grateful that she did. The next day at school, I was pulled out of class and brought to a room where the counselor, 3 first responders, and a police officer were waiting for me. They told me they had reason to believe I was unsafe and asked if there was anything I wanted to tell them. I lied and told them everything was great, and there was no need to worry, thinking it would all go away. But they kept coming back, pulling me out of class and asking me the same questions. After a few weeks, I broke. I couldn't keep lying, so I told them everything. My mom came to pick me up and took me home. I didn't have to go back to school for a while. The school suggested that I go to the police to make a statement. My mother and I did go to the police. However, in the end, we decided we weren't going to press charges. My parents were scared that Jim would go after my younger sister. He kept trying to blackmail me. He was so angry that I wasn't at school and that I didn't see him anymore. He would drive past my house to try and scare me. The police assured us that if we ever called them, they would come straight away. His threats continued for what seemed like forever, but one day, they suddenly stopped, and I haven't heard from him since. Once everything was over, that's when things actually became the most difficult. I was finally confronted with everything that happened to me. I felt horrible and ashamed about myself. I started going to therapy and continued to do so until I turned 18. The biggest problem was that I blamed everything on myself. I kept thinking that there were so many moments where I could have run away. But then again, I felt so trapped and so scared at the time. My therapist understood me completely. She said that I had completely lost my sense of self-confidence and was too afraid to even think about escaping. Today I'm 19 years old, and things are much better. I completed school and have a job as a healthcare worker. I work with children and love what I do. Children are innocent and always speak the truth. The relationship between my parents and I has improved significantly. They support me with everything that I do, and we don't argue anymore. My dream for the future is to start my own family. That's all I dream of. But deep down, I'm scared that I'll never be able to fully trust anyone ever again.